Hey everybody, happy new moonth, you could say. It's a super special one for me actually because I just recently began what hopefully is going to be a lifetime practice of making my own calendar where the primary thing I'm looking at is where the moon's at and other transitory things that I will layer on as I get better at this and more complexity. But the point is to see what actually exists in nature before looking for the conceptual. There's no such thing as Tuesday. There's no such thing as Wednesday, but happy Wednesday. After all, it is the appointed time for Vibe Ranting, and I'm super excited about it. I'm going to introduce my buddy Sopano in just a second, but first I want to lay down some intentions right now because this is new moon in Libra, super lit for me, even though it's the dark side of the moon because my moon is in Libra. So I'm getting a lot out of my personal dark side, not in a negative sense, but like really diving deep lately. So I hope that you guys can match me on this intention or speak your own into the air. But I personally hold all of you present, whether in the live or watching later, in my highest intention for creative partnership, collaboration, and shared synchronistic healing, realizations, insights, and 360-degree expansion. I love you all. I'm so excited for tonight. And let's go ahead and welcome Sepano. What's up, man? Coach, why don't you introduce yourself to anyone that might be new to you and tell us what you do before we get into the flow. I guess this is already flowing, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you, man. I'm excited to be here. I'm a mental performance and fitness coach. Been doing that for the past 10 years and beyond that, of course. That's just one level, one layer to it. Then the next it really goes above and goes within, going into the heart. And I consider it like a journey of what I've been calling self-evolution, not only for myself, but also for those that I've worked with and continue to work with. So it's just been, one long journey that started back when I was 14, 15, and the journey continues. It's just constant growth and then sharing that with the world, learning as well. It's like the symbiotic relationship. And I enjoy getting to express it all in forums like this.
Yeah, this is what it's all about. The coming together moment. This is the fun too, which that's also an
Mm-hmm.
intention that I maybe left out, but having fun with Vibe Rant is why it even exists. I'm not trying to be super serious in an unbalanced way. This is Libra time. And you were talking about before we got on the air some numerological significance to today in this moment. And so that might help people connect with what's up. And I'm waving around my dagger air sword right here. Crystal.
That's selenite.
Yeah, dude, it's my favorite.
Nice.
I
I got one too.
make wands like this. It's got a
Yours
lightning
is,
bolt
yeah,
dangling up the end. It's got a ram for my Aries sun.
that's dope.
It's pretty sweet.
Nice. That little turquoise too on the bottom.
It's actually a
Yeah.
serpentine, but it's like green
Ooh,
serpent stone or something like that.
nice.
It's all scaly looking. Yep.
Very cool.
Connect to that serpent wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, let me
So,
say before we get into the numerology, I got to say what's up to the chat. Alan, Enoch, what's up? Enoch being Gabriel, of course. Kabir, false reality check. Both of you, love you. Catherine, thanks everyone. Gordy, good to see you all in here. And I'll try to greet people as I go, but the early birds get the rewards of the shout outs. Yeah, so hit us with that numerology, coach.
oh yeah. So, what I was saying was that every day there's a universal vibration and a personal vibration. So the universal, you can consider that for the collective. So today, and the way you figure that out is you take the month plus the day plus the year, and first what you have to do is reduce the digits. So 10 is a 1, 6 is a 6, and then 2021 is a 5. So you add 1 plus 6 plus 5. So that becomes a 12, and then that reduces to a single digit. But you also consider the double digit that it comes from. So 12, 3. 3 is all about self-expression, fun, communication, arts. All the 3s, 6s, and 9s have an artistic element to it. I have a little cheat sheet here with all the numbers and their vibrations. But yeah, self-expression is the main one, and the watchword for that is creativity. So this is the perfect day.
The place to be. We're all about the creative here, big time.
Mm-hmm.
That's been coming up in my morning oracle card draws that I've been making videos for, which is that communication is super crucial right now and it's like lately my entire eyes have opened to what communication is really about, which is inner connectivity instead of like linear communication.
Hmm.
I keep harping on
Yeah.
this idea. I'll see. This pretty much brings us right into one of the topics we had in mind. So we'll see how you feel about it. But I've been harping on this
Yeah.
idea that feedback loops are an invention of cyberneticists, and cybernetics is the practice
Hmm.
of controlling living systems and machines and interacting them with each other. So feedback loops are circular logic. That's what every false matrix reality belief system paradigm requires, some sort of circular logic where at the end of the day, when you get to the bottom of the philosophy, it's like, because I said so is the reason.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
actually life is based on webs of communication where every point can touch and communicate with every other point. And there's a lot to that, why that matters,
Hmm.
but that's what we're doing. And I'm calling it, instead of networking, we're fun webbing. That's how it is. Like, because fun is a big part of whether or not you're on track and in a
Hmm.
flow state too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the prerequisites of flow state.
Yeah. So you had thoughts though on this concept of duality, and I think the
Mm.
three represents a really cool thing here too, because the scales, you might think of it as the two, just one and two balancing each other, but the only reason why they fall into balance is because the middle core pillar, right?
Hmm.
The third part. So to me, the key to transcending polarized mind is to be the point in the middle, to be the enter the void, the still part.
And I like how you have that diagram behind you. Is that the trigram or that triangle behind you?
I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure what his full occult reason for that design is. I've thought about it. Dude's an alien, but it's my friend Hakan from Turkey that made that art and a bunch of other art in my house. If you
Nice.
travel around in every room, but Alan
Well,
says
it's a
fun
it's a
webbing,
primordial
silly stringing.
it's a primordial shape.
Yes. Sorry,
Oh,
go
that's cool.
ahead.
No, that's what I was saying. Like it's a universal primordial shape. And it's the first primordial shape, right? The three, and so that's like where creation begins. And you're talking about those 2 points. You start with the single point, and then it branches off and it divides, and that's division. The Lucifer experiment, or you know, the duality. We'll just call it that duality, and then there's that third point, which forms the triangle, and all things start to create from there. But yeah, it's very universal, and even Tesla, I think, was saying like three sixes and nines. There's a secret there, behind those numbers, and they're all multiples of the same thing. So yeah, there's a lot of wisdom there.
Right. And then, of course, the gnarly sorcerers commandeer those symbols and
Yes,
those
yeah.
pyramids and all that. But what I've been thinking about lately is maybe I'm maybe I'm woo enough to start checking into like building a copper pyramid above my head for astral stuff, because I'm almost like there's so much interference lately from the plutonic energies on what I'm wanting to do in the astral. And actually, I think I did huge work to fix that yesterday, because I got to do exactly what I wanted in the dreamscape, which sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes the demons are like, you're going to slay us instead of doing something cool. But I'm wondering, because I've been like throwing in all the things I know about other than just straight up psychedelics, because that's too much
Hmm.
at the time right now. But
Hmm.
getting into like drum and rattle music and using certain crystals, and some of that's come to me kind of synchronistically. But my point is that I think we should start really honing the superpowers we have,
Yeah,
especially because of the level of interference going on right now in the reality.
yeah, and the most the simplest and most powerful way is, I think, going within. That gets us to what we're going to talk about, which is unity, and getting out of duality, which is like it's a simultaneous rising above. I'm going to use alchemy and hermeticism and talk about the swing of the pendulum. You're polarizing yourself above the swing of the pendulum, yet at the same time you're going within. So you're rising above by going within, and that where you're going within, that's the heart space. And so that's where all the superpowers lie. That's where all the wisdom is. And it's that single point of consciousness, which, and when you're talking about the web too, what I was thinking about was, if I got it right, was, each point can be its own source, right?
Yeah, and
So each
truly,
point,
it's funny because they throw us off track by calling systems like this decentralized, but it's more like re-centralized in a way, because every
yeah,
point becomes a center instead of every
yes,
point is in the middle now, instead of what's going on with feedback loops, where it's like technically it's circular logic, but it's also a linear pathway. And that is where you
hmm
get your polarized consciousness. I think this is what is twisted with the idea of the the pillars, Yakim and Boaz, by, you know, Masonic stuff. I'm not saying that those symbols themselves, I think those symbols themselves are trying to tell you what I'm saying, which is to find the middle point between them and
hmm
not be trapped in that polarization. But
yeah,
anyway, when we look at, for example, the body and health and what causes us to lose potency in our auric field, it's always blockages in the communication, and they're always external sources in a sense, whether it's trauma or something, you know, poked into you or that you ate, whatever the case may be. Maybe you inhaled it. That stuff is everywhere.
hmm
But what you get is communication breakdown from one part of the body to other parts of the body because of this compartmentalization of the energy and stagnation
hmm
of the energy. And it happens in the aura too, bioelectrically, not just internal to the skin. And what's supposed to happen is that if there's a signal that the body needs to send out, like, hey, we've got too much of this material over here, it's supposed to be able to send that information to everything at once that might be able to help and process some of
hmm
that. But what
yeah,
we've got is we've been trained to mentally reroute everything through brain and think that was like actually how it's supposed to work. And,
yeah,
you know, disconnect from feeling. And the feeling is actually how the signal travels through your body. So if you lose the ability to feel how it feels inside your body, and that's also the
hmm
same thing as losing emotion capacity, then that is the ultimate sign of the feedback circuitry in your body being wrecked and turned into a linear loop, right? Instead of, because as soon as you feel it and you send attention that way, that's what radiates the information to the rest of you. But if you're just like masking symptoms, numbing out, whatever,
hmm
or ignoring how you truly feel long enough that you just stop even noticing the signal, that is the breakdown.
yeah. And it's like it's reductionism versus holism. Looking at just one point, one symptom, or yeah, one symptom, one aspect that's just supposedly separate from the others, and not considering its connection to the whole. You know, and as you were talking about that communication, that kind of reminds me of like Chinese medicine, and like the organ systems, and how they're all, it's like, yeah, there could be the physical organ, but that system is responsible for so many functions, and then that communicates with another system. Like the spleen communicates with the stomach system, and then really the bladder communicates with the kidney system, and then that works to regulate fluids and whatnot. The heart is, and the triple burner, and anyway, so it's all connected. You see, like there are all these similarities, and it's so simple too when you look at it that way. And it's like, why has it become so complicated? Like why, how, and the brain, using the brain, and this I don't know what do you want to call it, like just overly analytical to the point of ego taking over, and letting it become this arrogant game of, like, thinking we control it all and we can create the rules. Not we, like you and I, are the people listening, but those that can say
We all
are
play
the
this
ones.
game
Yeah,
time to time. It's stories,
yeah,
really, more
yeah,
than ego. I
yeah.
think it's stories. Get the wrong story. You got it
Yes,
wrong.
yeah.
You're lying to yourself, you know?
Wrong myth. Yeah,
The wrong personal myth,
yeah.
honestly, because an
Yes.
ego with the correct personal myth is super powerful and not a plague upon its wielder.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm glad you
And then
mentioned
you
that
can be
because,
like, wow, it's
yeah.
fun being this ego, instead of like, this ego sucks, I wish that it would die.
Yeah.
That's
And
not a
it's,
good
and
way to be. It's not a good look.
no, no. And the ego is not an inherently bad thing. It's the self-identification software, I call it, of the soul. And when it's utilized correctly and it's expressed properly, then you have the magic. You know, when it's working in concert with the heart and soul, with with mind. You know, that one mind, that one energy. You have these three. It just happens to be three. Maybe it doesn't have. Maybe it is the reason, right? Three. You have mind, you have heart and soul, and then ego, body. When it all works together, that's where there's power. We have superpowers.
So, man, there's a lot of things I want to explore because I've been thinking about a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff this week. The mental powers during Libra season, definitely feel them amped up. But right, so I'll try to keep track of these thoughts, but I'll just put it out there so people can be
Let it
ready
go.
to
Yeah.
let me know where the dangling chads are if I leave them. Support chads. But we've got two things at least that I want to cover from here, which is the idea of the fun web as opposed to the network of data. You know,
Mm,
the what I've been calling it is yes and no but, as opposed to yes no or true false when
mm.
it comes
Oh
to how
yeah.
we look
Yeah.
at things. And so I want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about, because I know that you have a background in Hermetic studies and you understand maybe to a larger degree than a lot of people the principles of rhythm in
Yes.
these schools of thought. And I want to talk about communication because this is the theme
Mm,
from the perspective of 1, 2, 3. How has communication developed in our reality? So A
mm,
or one would be, in my estimation, rhythm is the first form of communication. Second form of communication, I'm not even remembering who I heard this from, but it's like really expanded in my mind whenever I heard it. The second form of communication is feeling. And the third form of communication, and this is the new one that's throwing us off, is sound. And I want to
mm.
explore that as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
where should we start? Let's start with the information thing. You know, the idea that maybe, again, with demolishing those two towers, Joachim and Boaz, the good one and the bad one, the yes and the
Yeah.
no, true, false. How can we look at truth without falling into moral relativism or solipsism while still
Mm.
maintaining this expansion outside of binary?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have answers, but I
Yeah.
want to
So
let
what
you talk.
it's like it's avoiding those extremes. That's like the first thing that comes up. Like ego is gas. Like that. Yeah,
So is what
avoiding
we
those
think of as
extremes.
negative and evil too. It's actually fuel.
Yeah, there was something I created, like a video I created, like 5 or 6 tenets of mental excellence, and one of them was there's no good or bad, only energy, right? You know, and because when you only place yourself in one, you place yourself in light, or you place yourself in dark, that you're cutting off half of the power of the potential, versus energy, chi, prana, life force, all of that. It all encompasses everything else, you know, and even to if you know, at the risk of going down a tangent, you know, a rabbit hole. Well, no, it's not.
Let's chase those
Um,
rabbits, dude.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
watching out for our Chads. If Chad is hanging by a thread, they will let us know and we'll get back to him and rescue him, whatever he might represent. So get on
yeah.
that
Good,
rabbit hole.
good.
Let's go. Let's
So
go.
so this is what I was thinking. It was because we were talking about unity and that sort of being the theme of this conversation just prior, you know, like a week prior. So it's spirituality, right? It's not, you know, spirit itself is in the word, and spirit is in all. It encompasses everything. It permeates everything. Everything comes from spirit, and sweet. Um, you can't call yourself spiritual. You can't claim to be a spiritual guru. I don't really believe in the word guru, but you can't call yourself any of that if you're still playing this game of duality and you're prone to either extreme, because you're going to be a pawn. You're a pawn of the game that's being played if you're on one side or another. And that's not to say, don't have your beliefs and your convictions. You stand for something, you honor that and you express yourself and fight for that. Yet the fight itself is dualistic. The fight itself is what perpetuates the cycle. So it's like a kind of a trap almost, and you can even say it's a trap of the ego, because the ego wants to protect the self, and then has these attachments. You attach to XYZ, and then you so strongly believe in it, the emotions come in, and you tie into it. You're already trapped, without knowing. And so it's like again, it's both. It's like you are one, but you are all. You are in it, but you're not of it. Actually, there's something else I mentioned. It was like attached detachment. You practice attached detachment. So you can attach and you can be a part of the world, the physical world, in this 3D game, yet detaching from it. And that's the rising above the swing of the pendulum. That's going within.
Yes,
and being your own center. Yeah,
and not rejecting the world and the body, but not being fooled that that's all you are.
Yes, exactly. Because and again, there's the extremes are on both sides, where you can those that are just so attached to the body, they have no concept of a greater force, a connection to the whole. That's one side, right? But then there's easily the other side, where it's like totally losing sight of the physical reality, the physical senses, the physical experience, and solely focusing on something on a mental plane, and neglecting what is right in front of oneself, the physical body, the responsibilities in this physical plane, and the communication that needs to occur for the best self to express itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, I was having this conversation with my buddy Jazz, a folk hero in these parts, last night, and we were talking about fate and why people think that they're trapped in a fate. And so here's what I think. This is what it generated out of my mind in this conversation. Is exactly what you're saying. Communication is the way that you actually become a free thinker. And so like free communication between yourself and the world, and all parts of yourself in the world and your body, that is freedom. And here's why I think that. This goes back to the calendar thing, talking about how I'm going to start funning, replacing the word work with fun. And unless I really mean that it's work and I didn't like it, I don't want that. But, I'm fun and hard here, but right. So I did some fun on a calendar that is based on the moon. And so it starts on the new moon. Today is the first day of the month for me, and continues till the next new moon. And by getting into this type of a rhythm of paying attention to what is in nature, it's not like you get a cheat to cheat or see the script before it occurs, but you see the direction that the river's going. And where somebody else, their only map for where they're at is that it's Wednesday at 8:26 p.m. Neither of which those things exist in any way, shape, or form. Right. Then they may have no idea that what they're about to hit is a straight up waterfall. Whereas the person who's actually looking at the river they're flowing down will know, oh, I'm going to get out of the water, go to the shore, and climb down the rocks instead of going over the cliff, right? So it's not that you can avoid the flow of reality and where it's going. There's that aspect, and it's determined by the rhythm, and the rhythm is communication with you from nature. But you do get the free will choice of like, well, how do I approach this energy? And the same goes for your own body and how it feels to be inside your body. That's why martial arts and energy work practices like Qigong is my chosen one, but there's plenty, are so crucial. Actually, the first energy I ever felt was from playing with selenite crystals. I tell you what, they have got some kind of ability to communicate with you. I know that for sure. And
Yeah.
so that's the free will, is the person who's in full communication with what actually exists in nature and in themselves. And the person who ironically thinks that they have freedom by following all the rules that were laid out to them by the egos of men has zero free will at all. And they're just trapped in a feedback loop, a rat race, a hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it. But it's not the right kind of a cycle. It's not the right, it's a distorted circle for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, touching on the energy work, that's one way that, we can all get in touch with the all that is, and all that is within oneself, getting a feel for subtle energy. And that can be through crystal work. It could be through Qigong, Tai Chi. And there's multiple practices. There isn't just one, but that, that I think is one method of getting out of that duality, because you just start to, and you go into the right brain. It's the right brain versus the left, and both are necessary. And actually, I think it's hemispheric. It joins both hemispheres, but getting more into that feeling side, at least for those that tend to be way more, say, analytical and physical, that feeling side is necessary to creating the balance. And yeah, I mean, I'm constantly working on it. Just, there's practices you can do, like such as if you're, right-handed, start to do things with the left hand, like for the past, I don't know how many years it was. Well, 2 years, maybe. I started writing with my left hand, and I journal now with my non-dominant hand, and things like that, where you just start to, it's a physical practice, yet it has a carryover into the, the mental, emotional, spiritual planes. So the energy work, I started with energy work, then I went to these.
I'll pause you and we'll go to energy work, because I'm sure
Yeah.
we have a lot there, but now I kind of want to show off
do it.
Maybe I'll do it later, a clip of it. But I do a type of flow art called levitation wand, and it's a wand on a subtle string. It's like old magician's trick. And so the wand is like vertical and stays on a plane of motion, and it looks like it's hovering in the air around me, but it's actually on a string. Anyway, when I started that practice, I started it left-handed, even though I'm right-handed, and I use both hands with it. So it's like it's exactly what you're talking about. It's a practice that I purposefully have become ambidextrous at, whereas a lot of other things, we're not ambidextrous, and it's hard to even make yourself ambidextrous because you spent so many years only doing it the one way. But yeah, Jenny B in the chat says, behoove us to practice full body dexterity. Yeah, you would know, Gemini. Balance is basically like a Libra, air vibe right there. So everybody should take that advice, though. It's a pretty good idea. It's not like it's easy. You don't need to get down on yourself for not finding something that clicks with, but it definitely can stimulate, especially if you're right-handed, to get something that you're good at with the left hand, stimulate the right brain and the creative side.
Yep.
So yeah.
And I think you can switch. You can switch, there's tests and things you can take to determine whether you're more right-brained or left-brained. I think you can switch, and you can become, you can be both. And, I know I was more left-brained before I started getting into energy work and subtle energies, really getting into building those intuitive faculties. But now I know, I'm more right-brained, and I see and perceive things in symbols and feelings. Like it's something that I got more in touch with. So it's like everything is very malleable.
And that becomes like navigation system, where you're literally constantly getting a message from source at all times. Like,
yeah,
it's just nonstop. You'll be at the restaurant and someone, or at a party or something, and you and a friend will make a joke or tell a story about somebody else that's there, but they're far away, but it was a funny story relating to them. And right when you and your friend laugh, you hear from across the room that friend also laughs for some reason at that exact moment. Little hints that actually we're all one life force energy, interconnected at all times. And it helps to open up that channel of knowing and not just, conceptually thinking maybe it's possible that everything's connected non-locally. It totally is. And on the energy work subject, just the fact that I've got the tuning fork thing that I do, that people can do long range Reiki or long range aura repair with sound without the other person physically being hit by the sound waves. That is very much proof. And a lot of people just haven't had the experience, and maybe wouldn't even have the experience properly because they would have trouble giving permission to that energy to flow non-locally due to their disbelief. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. It's, I have a buddy of mine who's a hypnotherapist, licensed hypnotherapist, but he's very spiritually in tune and all that, but it's everything he talks about, everything being kind of like a hypnosis. It's a almost a second nature thing. Like we're always in a state of trance when what we're doing, learning itself, as he says, it's like a hypnosis. But I brought that up because you were talking about belief and the belief systems getting in the way.
Well, think about this hypnosis. I just thought of this. Hip is like what's cool, popular, or trendy, whatever. Gnosis. So people are hypnotized by the trendy belief system, or the by what's the cool belief system.
Hypnosis.
Anyway, little word.
All the play on words. Yeah. And but the belief systems are so deeply embedded. Like we have to become aware of what we think. And that's it can be an obvious statement, but really going into it, like if there's something blocking you or something that you're struggling with, a challenge, a mental barrier, there is a limiting belief in the root of that or behind that has to be addressed. And maybe it just flies, over the radar or under the radar, however you want to look at it. And you just don't realize it, but it comes out in the self-talk and the daily dialogue. And sometimes, what's tricky is that that dialogue could be feeling based. It may not actually be thoughts that you have. So this is not something I don't really talk about this with clients in mental performance because it's not a Western concept. We're talking
feeling-based dialogue. This is where I wanted to go anyway.
Yeah. Yes. Good.
So good. Yeah. Feeling and then rhythm, that's the original. I think that's more potent than letting your entire existence be run on the English language operating system given to you by sorcerers.
Right. Yeah. And even though, I have a degree in sports psychology and I practice mental performance, but it's like that itself is such a Western concept. Like sports psychology is a Western creation. They didn't have that in the East. They didn't have sports medicine in the East. It's, going to sports psychology, it was just life performance. It was the mental would enhance through the physical practice and the connection to something spiritual. I mean, if you look at all of the martial arts that and their origins, there's always a spiritual practice. So point being that the whole concept of sports psychology, it's kind of like, it's language based. It's very, and I'm not even to bash it. It's like reductionistic in many ways. And we're looking at something such as self-talk, which obviously is important, but self-talk, it's just the speech that's taking place. But what about the feelings? There's talks about thoughts, but not enough about feelings, And so going back to the thing about the belief systems, beliefs can be carried in feelings, and we might not know that because we might be searching for, where's the limiting thought? Where's the self-defeating thought? But it could be a feeling, and it just doesn't even register as the language end of it. It's awareness on the part of the I want to say the adept, the initiate of figuring that out, and then going to the intuitive side and working on rooting out where the feelings come from, where does it originate from, and then how can we change that.
So this is where the conversations usually get obscure, or not obscure, but the road ends for people's ability to communicate and express past this point of, well, what does it mean to get to the root of your trauma or your emotions, your feelings? So I'm I'm gonna try to push this river forward. That is, I don't hear it. And I guess maybe I had to like learn it before I could enter a version of reality where it's expressible. But it turns out to be super simple. Like Be Real says, energy doesn't lie. So where I'm at with this is that
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't know where the feeling is coming from or exactly the source or how to get to the root of it when it's coming up, if you now are able to communicate to yourself through feeling and to communicate with nature by paying attention to rhythm, so you're transcending the idea of the logos, which, you know, if there was a demiurge, that's probably it, what they call the logos, because that's the sound, like the speaking things into existence. It's also not evil. It's a part of nature and is part of what we're meant to expand into as our powers here, as we're, you know, growing infinitely in this matrix womb. That's what a matrix is a womb. And yeah, Ma plays tricks on you to help you strengthen up, toughen up. That's what a good sensei or teacher would do. They will exploit your weak
Mm-hmm.
spots so that you can pay attention to them. And when you feel that exploitation of a weak spot, as in like hard feelings, follow. Actually, the first thing is to follow the feeling. Like Gabe says, be the water. Well, that
Mm-hmm.
would mean you flow in the direction that the emotion, which is represented in the older Western philosophies as water,
Mm-hmm.
you flow where it's going. So that means instead of going, I don't want to feel this way, or I can't tell this person how I feel right now. And it's especially, this is the biggest issue I've noticed with people that we love the most. Some of us that want to be good and we're kind of stuck on the polarity of like, I must be good. And not that you shouldn't aspire to bring harmony and balance to the world. I definitely am on team light, you know, in this chess game. It's more fun for me. But that's just because my story of what the dark is isn't that it's evil. Someone else might bring a story to me that their darkness is evil, and I'll just be like, get away from me. And they can't penetrate the boundary. But the thing that you do by expressing the hard feelings, even to somebody that you really care about, instead of what we've all, not all, but a lot of us have been trained to think, which is that, well, now they'll see me as not as shiny or good, or I'll be imperfect to them. Instead, realize that the person that cares about you as much as you care about them, an authentic friend, would actually be very happy to receive that expression from you, because they can help find the light in it with you and bring you further along. So it's not that you got to go around telling everyone every emo situation you've got, but if they're like the person, maybe you're the person that you communicate with a lot, or people you communicate with a lot, don't be afraid to express them if that's where the feeling wells up to go, you know. And it's like, at the very least, don't avoid authentic positive connections out of a fear that you're too low vibe right now. And that also doesn't mean you shouldn't follow intuition and know when you need alone time. You know, alone time is cool too for your personal transmutation, but just don't completely block out the possibility of expressing the negative or the bad, because that is blocking half of the communication. And actually, on the yin yang side, that's the divine feminine you're blocking. And it's not, and you can just flip your script, change your story, and say, it's not negative, it's realistic. This is really how I feel. This is realism. This is really the challenge. And once it's externalized and taken out of you and not just festering in you, it becomes a fuel, because you now have a roadmap of what you want to change and what you want to address. And you've detached from it, and you're now looking at it more objectively, and maybe even with help. But it's this is stuff I've been learning lately. It's maybe a generational thing because Chiron moves slow, but I've got Chiron in Cancer, which is like, hide the wound behind the shell. Put on the armor, look really good all the time. So, and I got to look especially good with the Leo in the rising sign. But anyway, really into looking at the holistic view of all the signs and planets in combination, and seeing how that also helps you feel rhythm and things. But anyway, that's enough of a ramble. This is where I'm at though right now. I think that we should get over needing to be perfect beings of love and light, and realize that expressing the dark side in an authentic way is what helps you get more light, actually.
Yeah, no, I love everything you just said. I mean, I wrote down two things because I wanted to keep track, because there's all these ideas that come up, as you're talking, and I'm like, I don't want to lose the original thoughts. But two things that came up,
We
and we
got
can
Chad
also talk.
wranglers. We'll be
Yeah.
fine. They're
Oh, good.
wrangling
Yeah,
every
yeah.
Chad out there. I
Yeah.
know they are. Some of them.
Yeah. So honoring the self and self-love, which really can be interchangeable, but that part, we're talking about, holding back because out of fear of expressing something dark, right? In quotes, expressing something that may not be accepted. And that all those things are just holding oneself back. And that's not honoring yourself. That's not giving yourself love, because if you loved yourself truly, well, then you'd also realize that everything is connected to you. You're giving yourself love, you're giving the universe love. And
I think
by
self-love's
holding
the only
back,
kind that there
yeah,
is.
yeah, I mean, it's the only, no, really it is, because, well, think, and then there's a duality that can come up there. Well, I just call it duality because it's just two things. One is that you can either be in self-love or self-obsession, and it can be easy to fall in, to think that you're doing acts of self-love when in reality you're doing acts of self-obsession, and that's more tied to ego. And again, not that ego's bad, but
Tied to an
it's
incorrect story.
looking, yeah, 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 an incorrect story, a story that is dependent upon externalities, validation, outcomes, rewards, potential rewards, or potential failures, rejection, all those things. It's like it's something that's being projected outward, whereas with acts of self-love, it's all just inner work that's taking place, and then that inner work, it's transmitting outward, and then it's coming back inward. It's like, and then it's a constant, it's an interplay. um so that's just what I thought of when you brought that up with like holding back, and then the whole thing about um light and dark, like there's, well, it's all expression. Like it's how you choose to express that. It's not it's not the expression of it itself that's bad. It's how you choose to express. And when you are honestly, authentically expressing yourself, then that itself is the act of self-love. And it's you're just in harmony with all that is. Things are going to flow better for you.
So, not to derail us here, but I'm going to post in the chats
Mhm.
the
Do
Telegram
it.
group link for the Vibe Rant call-in line. So the way that I do
Oh, nice.
calls for Vibe Rant is that I use Telegram and I have a certain group set aside for this, and you can leave us a voicemail. You can drop some memes. You can put a question in there. Obviously, you can just put a question in the live chat, but over on this group, you can put media to share with us, even videos, Um, so get after it. And then a little later, I'll also post the full in link to call into StreamYard and just talk to us live, and maybe we'll get a few takers on that. But that's what I want to do tonight. I want to see at least one funny meme in there. I demand it. And another thing I want to shout out and post a link for. By the way, if you guys aren't on Telegram even after the Zucker cluster fuck the other day on 10-4, if you're still not on Telegram after that, you missed out to be one of the 70 million people that joined that day. They claim. I mean, maybe it's not true, but I think it's probably true. So we've got a second group. I've got several groups. That's the beauty of Telegram. Really easy to manage multiple conversations. And this one I'm linking here is we're calling it Inktober Art Party. And I just change the name every month with it, maybe put a theme on it. But it's a Telegram group about daily practice of your creative flow of any kind. And we just encourage each other to stay on that and to silence the inner critic by sharing what we're doing and then showing love to each other and appreciation for those cool works of art. So I would love to see some more people in that fun group. I'm posting that on Rockfin and on whatchamacallit, YouTube. Yeah, so there it is. Maybe see some new people in there. Don't be shy. Like nobody's going to rip your art up or something. you're the one doing that to you. So if you don't want to share, it's okay. That's fine. But it's really neat to have people to check in with and keep a daily practice going. And the goal is to, even if you spend 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, treat it like something along the lines of a meditation, where the more you do it, the easier it'll be to do it more. And you're harvesting your own energy. You're containing your own ideas and building a body for them. And this is massive because most people are just spraying their spiritual currency everywhere, and it's being harvested for them by other entities. Like, oh, thanks for the Netflix subscription. Oh, thanks for, you came to our baseball game, whatever. And there's way worse things than that too, harvesting people's energy, especially the creative energy, that particular, you guys know what I'm getting at. Anyway, having a container, channeling it in there, it doesn't matter your skill level or what you believe about talent. I personally think it's myth. It is about the daily practice and how that accumulates. And there is a great secret to wealth, is that you let the little steps in the path accumulate to get you far and to show the big picture, rather than never starting because you think you can't do it all in one day. So why even bother? And it's a great, anyway, there's my advertisement for that group. I saw Carol joined. What's up, Carol? Good job. Get in there. And I think she shared she shared a meme for us too. I've got another announcement to make as well, but here's the meme. This is the kind of thing that you could be doing for us, everybody. Hilarious, fun memes. Check this out. Proof that covering your face won't save your life.
That's good.
Dark. Yeah, so appreciate that. Thank you, Carol. It's a fire one. Never seen that one. You can't get enough jokes about the face diapers. That just never stops to be funny. I laugh every time I see somebody in the car alone, just like covered up, and they got sunglasses on too. Like, everything is killing me, especially sunlight. So that
does baffle me.
Yeah, speaking of sunlight, the other announcement is that we're doing a live version of InnerVerse on Friday. Usually that show's pre-recorded and premiered, but because I'm going off to a bluegrass folk music festival on Saturday and Sunday, and it's easier to pre-produce than post-produce this time, I will be doing it live, and I believe we're going on at 2 p.m. Central. So over on your left coast, that's noon. So a little midday potent sun energy live stream, if you guys can make it. I know we usually do stuff at night, but hey, let's try it out during the day, especially because we will be joined by the very bright and hot light of some hot men named Alan Marcus and Gabriel, the slick dissident, both of which are fire signs like myself. We'll have a triplicity Aries, Leo, Sag, fire fiesta. So get in there with us, 2 p.m. Central on probably Thursday night. I'll get the stuff posted up so that you can get yourself a notification on YouTube and all that. But anyway, it's going to be literally fire. So who knows what we're going to talk about, but we talk about a lot of shit that we don't record. So I'm sure we'll find some very good gravy to dollop out for everybody. So mark it on your moon calendar, your moon map, that on 2 days from now, we will be doing that super sweet live stream in the middle of the day on Friday. Okay, so back to dangling chads. Where are we at, everybody? Where are you at, Sopano?
Let's see. We just left off on the dark and the light, and dissolving that notion of one or the other, or being afraid to express one or the other. Usually it's the dark, and that's that's just what we left on. Acts of self-love, being honestly and authentically expressing yourself, so that there is no blockage.
Alan says to send us questions for the Friday show, and that would be cool if we had some preloaded. That way, in case you can't make it in the afternoon because of your job or whatever, we can still get to your questions. And that would be great to do over Telegram. I'm telling you, Telegram is we're talking about communication here. That's the place to go. There's there's just not this thing that I've come to call profile posturing, which is super ego, super mooncat. on things like Instagram. I'm not saying everybody that's got one does this, but there's this whole fake image of this is who I am based on the 15 best pictures I've ever taken of myself and put filters on in my life. There's that whole thing. And like, there's not all this bogged down, excessive other functionality that just encourages people to make mindless content in order to keep their self relevant with algorithms. And I'm talking about like stories, basically. I'm not saying all stories are a waste, but what you get on the wonderful Telegram app is just direct communication, and that's it. Direct sharing of media, and that's it. And it's in a searchable interface where instead of that Facebook post you made in 2012, never going to come back again unless it happens to show up on a memories and you logged in that day, you'll never find it. You'll be scrolling for days just to get back to that year. Those platforms are about, you're the product. That's why they're free generally. Telegram, I guess you may be a product there too. Who knows what they're collecting, but at least we can communicate without the censorship and without some of the psychological warfare in terms of how the interface is designed on the Zucker media. So I'm really pushing Telegram. I have zero stock in it other than it's where all my friends hang out. So let's get in there. So yeah, let's get in Telegram together, friends. I guess I'll put the InnerVerse link there too. And we were talking about the light and the dark, like you just said, of expressing even the dark or the hard being crucial to self-love. And I think this is where the idea of the story really kicks in, and why I was calling the logos or sound like the real demiurge in a Gnostic sense. And what I mean by this is that as soon as we started putting sounds as a symbolic representation of something in reality, that's the first step removed from said reality, right? Because observing rhythm, observing the moon, what have you, there's no filter between, there's no middleman. It's just you and that. And you and me can both look at the moon at the same time without making a sound to each other. And we can be sure that the feeling we get in the term of sense impression of the moon is close enough that we know how the other feels about it, especially if we're not putting language between things. Now, I'm not demonizing the technology of speech or sound. Obviously, we're in it and the game has started. The game has been on for a while. But if we cannot lose the original communication, that's how we anchor the sound-based communication in truth and in harmonious vibration. And then it becomes like God mode power, because we can start using the sound to direct our intentions. And that's how we get from being just a part of nature, like the animal, and embedded in it and just directed by the instinctual movement and flow of feeling, to being conscious creators in the realm. And that's what that third part represents, is the child, mother, father, child. The child is what's created. The sound is how we create. So it's like crucial though that what we're creating from has a mom and dad. It's not just one or the other or neither.
It's not an orphan.
Yes, not an orphan. And there's so much to that. Orphan, ophanim. That just popped into my head. Alan, mark it down for Friday. So Enoch, Gabriel, he's got a question for you specifically, dude. Why is Zero exiled from numerology?
So the numerology that I studied and learned from my mentor, who's his name is Michael Bisbiglia. He's been doing this for 40 plus years. He looks at it as he looks at it as a point of origin, and the Pythagorean numerology, and it's a connection to the divine and all that is. So it's kind of, it's all or nothing with zero. I don't have an answer to why it's exiled in most numerology, because it's never really used, it's never looked at. It's just like, you have a 20, that's a 2. The 0 doesn't count for anything, even in Pythagorean numerology. So yeah, I don't have an answer for that, but I just say that it's that point. It's a point of origin. It's all or nothing. It's everything, yet it's nothingness. And there probably could have been some manipulation in the systems, and totally disregarding it, because maybe that's where all the power does lie. When we go to the center, we go to the source, and we unlock the connection to all things. Because you see that in occult
Now I
the
get why I
occult.
drew this card. I drew this
Yeah.
card a few minutes ago. Now I understand why. It's because of his question. The world,
The world.
which is card 22, even though it's labeled 21, because 0, the fool, is actually the first. And the world, the whole, the totality, all four corners of it are this 0, this circle. So yeah, the void is everything. Everything is nothing. Heaven and earth are one thing. There is no distinction between what we see as poles in truth. We're actually it's just it's just a sine wave, but it's a mirror. And that is a super helpful truth to realize that even the hardest core mooncat, difficult, bad energy that comes your way is literally your sensei that's trying to show you how to bounce back to the other side. And you just keep bouncing. But you get, so the high frequency thing is about you're not flung back and forth by these two forces, and you can stay centered, right? It's not about losing the emotion or the flow of feeling, but it's about more quickly recovering from the waves crashing on your head, right?
Yeah, and that's resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, that crash. That's just what I thought of. But 0 to move for a long time. Yeah. Yeah. And another thing actually that I didn't mention in answering the original question was it is, well, in Pythagorean numerology, you look at the double digits that the single digits are reduced from. And you have multiples of 10, 10, 20, 30, 40. Those are all known as Dekov numbers. And that, so when you're looking at double digit numbers, you look at it from right to left. So it's one number, the number to the right acting through the left. So 20, for example, that's a different vibration than the 22. 20 that reduces to 2 is a different vibration than an 11 2. And that's because, so 20 is a number of judgment. So that's divinity acting through emotions. And 20, there's, we had 2020, whereas it's double judgment. But it's the right, or it's getting out of the right or wrong, getting out of the all or nothing mentality. So those with 20s in their charts, you've got 22, there is, they have to watch out for, the right and wrong of things, a sense of justice, because justice can be very strong in the 20. And that all again comes from the fact that there's the 0 there, the divinity, spirituality acting through the number to the left, and then 10, 0, 1, that's all about perfection. It's like the 0 divinity acting through the self. So there could be a lot of ego there, if you have a 10, 1, because.
Oh, you mean like Satan? Satan, the original bad ego character.
There you go. There's a play on words right there. Yeah. Speak it, right? You speak. 10.
Yeah, you got to express it.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to ask for a call in from Gabriel, if he's up for it, or a voicemail if it's easier for you. I would like you to bring on the concept of the writing a script from left to right as opposed to right to left. I want to know if that concept for you, Gabriel, connects at all to what we're talking about here and this balance concept. So check Telegram if you're capable. If you aren't, just please comment and just grab the StreamYard link and call in if you're into it. We'll see. But yeah, I've got some other weird ass memes. I said I'd share them, so we're going to. We're going to thank Alan for this first. I don't even know if this counts as a meme, Alan, but you know what? There it is. I don't get it, but I'm showing
it.
What does this mean? Is it over my head? Okay, and so we also got one from Nick, and that is looks like a homegrown one. So nicely done. He makes his own. That's probably going to make the algorithm mad. So better take it down. But that's pretty funny.
Did you say Al Gore
rhythm? Yeah, Al Gore's rhythm, right?
Al Gore's rhythm.
Oh, I get it. Alan's still on the topic of shaving our balls. We were talking about that the other day. Yeah, ball shavers. Anyway. All right. So we'll see if Gabriel. Oh, here he is, dude. He's on it. Righteous. Hey, buddy. Good to see
Nice.
you.
What's up, man?
Hey, fellas.
Looking forward to our big burn down or build up, whatever it'll be on Friday.
Same, man. Same. Sopano, good to meet you, brother.
Likewise, man.
Both martial arts instructors and lifelong martial arts practitioners sweet. Right here. So you guys should just talk about that. Let me relax. Jeez.
No, but Gabriel, you had something you wanted to call in with.
I made a special request. Call to his brain.
Yeah, I was the one who asked about the zero.
Okay.
Zero is exiled. Zero is my dog's name.
Oh yeah, and if you have thoughts on the answer to that question, Gabe, let's get into that too. You're here, so let's take full advantage of your presence and get those presents of wisdom nuggets.
Yeah, well, I do. I have an interesting story. I was pondering the zero very deeply when I started getting into numerology, and I thought about it so hard that I ended up manifesting a very interesting book in a bookstore called Zero, the biography of a very dangerous idea. And it was just sitting there in the window on the very day that I was obsessing over the idea myself. And so I went into, it's a very short book, not very long. And I learned a lot. It's amazing how much there is around the idea of zero. But apparently the Greeks had forbidden the use of zero. And so it was literally culturally exiled from Greek numerology. And so I just think it's really profound that to some degree, numerology still upholds that sacred observance of not having a zero. So, and today I was thinking about it, and it occurred to me that, with the tarot cards, the Fool card is like that space holder. Even though we know it's the beginning, it kind of drops out, and we consider the Magi card, card number 1, even though it's card number 2. And so this is where things get kind of weird, but I wonder if we are not being trained to be of two minds. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I'd also add to that, what if there was a good reason to cut out zero from your abilities and your reckonings and actually prevent the possible misuse of number, right? I've heard some schools of thought that the Luciferic fall, if you will, of man has to do with when number stopped having sacred significance and just became a mechanistic tool for counting money and resources and heads to send to war and things like that. And perhaps you would, at that point too, like nature speaks in number. That could be considered one of the original forms of communication. But in nature, there isn't zero of anything. If something is, it's definitely not zero. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There is no thingness.
Very true. Yeah.
So it reflects nature in a sense too.
It really is. It's profound to think about. And in the book, I learned that, the opening chapter, they got to get your attention right away. They got to give you something adventurous and action-packed just to get you, to hook you into the book. So the opening chapter of Zero, a biography of a dangerous idea, was a story about the SS Yorktown, the aircraft carrier. And I believe it was in 1992 when the Yorktown, the SS Yorktown, was the computers failed and the ship was dead in the water. And the reason why the entire ship was shut down was because somebody had left a 0 in the code. And so kind of like a bit of a murder mystery it takes place, and it turns out it was the coder he left a 0 in the mix, and it shut down an entire war machine.
Interesting.
And so I took that and I kind of projected onto the Y2K idea. And if you can shut down the SS Yorktown with the 0, then what is the Y2K phenomena going to do to the whole world? Just a random thought.
That is, yeah, there's so much to that too. Like without 0, you wouldn't be able to easily do the whole binary system possibly that computing is running on. Maybe. But
Yes.
maybe, but then on the other hand, the esoteric 0, which is the void, is still a valid aspect of the occult reality. So it's weird. It's almost like maybe this 0, as it's used in a non-spiritual way in banking and all these fallen forms of technology, it's an example of yet another plagiarization of spiritual ability as applied to an external technology. Because I think that is a pattern with the powers that should not be, is that they love to take what should be an inner process or an inner knowing and externalize it into something, and that inverts it in the process if it's brought into the external and used unspiritually. And that's unbalanced too, in a sense. It's taking one side of the scale only. Maybe you can use them externally if you understand the internal significance. Maybe it just is supposed to be both. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. But then there's also some good stuff in the chat. Alan brought up the infinity and the 8. And then, of course, that's the analemma. Is that how you say that? Is that right? Analemma, the pattern the sun makes over time if you did a photograph of it at the same time every day for a year. Very important. You get into that on your channel recently, which is cool. But this idea could also represent mitosis, 2 holes, which are 0s, coming from 1.
Profound.
You'll think, I know you're thinking placenta already, but
yeah, buddy, I am. Yeah.
What was my original question for bringing you on before we just went hard on 0?
I think you were asking about Bostrophedon writing. And
yeah, there we go. Is this gonna like weave in tightly? Let's try.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, Chance, I think you are onto something about 0, the concept of a nothing. It lends to fractions and fractional reserve banking. And, the whole concept of usury and, taking a little off the top. And what putting a 0, and instilling the idea that it's an insignificant amount, and thereby building an empire based on usury. There's a lot to be said there. I think there's a lot to be said there. But Bostrophedon writing is, originally it's Aramaic. And Aramaic used to go from right to left, and then it would drop down and go left to right, and then drop down and go right to left, back and forth. And Bostrophedon translates to "as the ox plows." And it's a long story, but the first day that Mercury was born, and here we have born, the birth, the fool, the initiation, the 0. The first day he was born, he went on a bit of a he initiated a mystery, and he stole the cattle of Apollo, and he led them back and forth across the field so that their tracks would leave a bit of a mysterious pattern. And so he led the ox back and forth so that Apollo would have to track him the longest possible route across a short distance. And so I find it profound that that type of writing is very unique to the Middle East, the center of where they say the Tower of Babel was, and all of the writing to the west of that location flows towards the Tower of Babel, and all of the writing from the east of that location flows towards the Tower of Babel in opposite directions. And what is really wild is that Mercury is the messenger. He carries the information. And so the fact that all language east of the Tower of Babel flows to the Middle East, and all language from the west of the Tower of Babel flows back into the Tower of Babel, is as though our language is building the tower again, with every word and every letter and every movement of the pen.
And now emojis.
Yeah, and now emojis. Yeah. Yeah.
That's some wild stuff. We're going to have to sit with that. And Matakshali, I don't know. I've been trying Matak Shelly 01. Zero requires an initiation to work with. That's an interesting thought. What do you think about this initiation aspect of zero, Sopano?
I think that's, well, as you were talking about all that, I was just thinking about 0 point and how there's the origination of energy. Well, no, I'm not going to say that because energy just exists, but there is that initiation is the breath that gives the thing life. And from there you have the beginning, then you have the sequence, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4. And, we call ourselves in Hermeticism and alchemy, we call ourselves initiates, because that's the process. That's the process of doing the great work and transmuting the lead to gold, the alchemical lead to gold. That's actually, yeah, right, what was said there. Well, it's
Alan said that zero might imply a male learning the mystery of the female. That is a good comment there.
It's the connection of both, right? And there's that I think
how do you learn it? Communication.
Yeah, well, you have the sun and the moon, in those alchemical drawings, the sun and the moon, and then the what was represented as Hermes, holding, I think, the caduceus, and it's like that's the union, the alchemical marriage, they call it, the alchemical marriage. So that's what that reminded me of. But yeah, it's something that I'm kind of thinking out loud on too. But
it's my favorite place to be.
Yeah. No, it's really it's very mentally expansive, and I like that. There's power in it. There's power in what you don't know, because it's yet to be discovered. That's more potential to be had and to harness. So I think we're just so like at the infancy of it, of what's really possible. And I think, yeah, that's 0 point. If we can really understand that and dive into it, perhaps the breath is one method, the energy work that we do through breathing, because breath is that connector. It's the connection between physical and spiritual, heaven and earth. So,
I'll comment on that. I got into this on yesterday morning on the well. That was a deep, long dive. that oracle yesterday, it was over 30 minutes. And I'm trying to do 15 minutes, I swear. But it becomes very difficult when there's
You're
so
really
much.
good with those oracle readings, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm coming. Like, if you guys caught that, I want to bring up the idea of how the dolphin card represents the using the breath and the mana or prana energy as your entry point to the dream time is what they call it in that tradition, but
Yeah.
it's specifically like, you know, the astral or the realm of idea platonically, or who knows, there's a lot of things you could call it, but I like dream time personally. And what is going on, I liken it to Wim Hof breathing or breath of fire, where you do this very rapid polarization of yourself by taking in a lot of oxygen and not exhaling very much. And because you polarize yourself so far in one direction, at the point where you stop breathing and hold your breath and you zero out temporarily because you're no longer in a rhythm of back and forth, you can stay in the zero. You can hold your breath for a long time as that polarity that you've made extreme gradually starts to head towards that threshold where you will eventually reach the point. And if you do it well, maybe you can do 2 minutes or 3 minutes of holding your breath, but it'll eventually cross that threshold again where now you need to breathe and rebalance, or you need to release and then breathe. But you see what I mean is that actually in another conversation, crazy friend Jazz, he was telling me about how he does. Dude's the weirdest wizard ever. Don't think he knows he's such a wizard, but he was telling me about how he'll take like month-long breaks or longer from cannabis. And then on his first day back, he will smoke so much that it's like absurd, like an absurd amount where it is impossible to not go into the deepest anxiety and dread if you then throw yourself into a situation like go into a shopping mall. And so he'll do this on purpose. And now I'm seeing that this is the same tactic, but from the other side of the polarity, where instead of charging up your prana, you're charging up the dark energy. And then eventually you just let go into the dark energy and you're just freaked out. But while you're there, you go into that with a specific question or goal. This is what he was saying. I guess it's like a chaos magic thing. And while you're there in the shopping mall or the restaurant or whatever uncomfortable setting, you just let your awareness circle around you in whatever direction it's pulled without intention, because you've already set the intention of what you want to find out about yourself or what question you want answered. And basically it puts you into a synchronistic type state of like everything you hear will pertain in a divinatory way to exactly what was on your mind in that moment, because you're on this temporary zeroing out moment while that extreme polarization is pulling back towards the middle, if that makes sense. I recommend doing it the breath way though. The dolphin way. But if you're hardcore, do the jazz way and just get way too stoned to go out in public with a question and try to see if like you can string together almost in like a ghost box, if you've heard of those before, where you like turn on the radio that scans channels and try to hear a message out of the random sounds you get.
Yeah.
But with a public setting and with eavesdropping, or you could do it in numerous ways. But and we do this with divination we realize that you don't need to go that far. You can, if you're in a flow state, then everything will be that message or that communication. And so you can just like flip a card even without making big pomp and ceremony about it, and it'll still be like, if you don't abuse this and if you don't abuse that power in a sense and like overdo it to the point where it becomes meaningless, you can create moments of meaning for yourself and synchronicity generators all the time. Like me randomly drawing this card just for the heck of it, and it was about zero with that before we got to the topic of zero.
That is awesome.
Sync generator.
So I think Jazz is brilliant. I think he's so brilliant.
Yes.
And I think you bringing him up is perfect, because I think he's given us the answer right there. You just brought the answer, because he abstains until he becomes a virgin again. And by doing that, he becomes an empty vessel. in the slightest, and then the slightest exposure to marijuana, it has that he becomes an initiate. He becomes a neophyte, and his first return, it's almost like being born again to the spirit. That's profound, so yeah, he really is embodying the value of the nothing, of the no thing, so that he can be fulfilled all over again. That's really profound.
Okay, so here's some more gravy. All right, Sopano, you got something? Sorry, mate.
No, I'm loving it. I'm just agreeing with that. That right there with both the Wim Hof breathing and the jazz method. It's like that it's rising above the swing of the pendulum. You lose concept of right or wrong, left or right, any duality, and you are back in that reset, that the virgin, the fool child. I mean, it's fool child in this deck that I have, the Voyager deck, which is also 0, but fool child, he calls it that because it's like that point of innocence again, where there isn't any judgment, there isn't any looking at things from both sides. So yeah, that's I think we're tapping into some wisdom right there.
Hey, here's a share from that.
I saw that smile. I saw a smile on your face. I'm like, what is he thinking?
Alan comments with the caption here of embody, you say? So there's that. There's that. I'll take this hideous monstrosity down now. Anyway. What made it so funny was that I just hit you with it out of the blue, like no warning.
That was glorious.
Here's another good meme share from Carol, and this is perfect because, like, why are you always so vague about your spiritual beliefs? This is the yes and spirituality right here. Yeah, just take it all in and eliminate what doesn't have consistency, right? But okay, so man, I had somewhere to go with where Gabriel left off and Sopano left off, but there's a dangling Chad. I'll have to find it by deciding I don't care and letting it pop back in. Thanks for the meme shares, everybody. I appreciate everybody for contributing here. Also, if anybody wants to call in, say so in that chat and we'll pull you in if you have thoughts on this. I definitely have more stuff in mind on this subject, but I'm gonna have to kick it to somebody else and let my brain percolate again because I lost the sight. I lost it.
I got a question while I'm here. Sopano, what martial arts are you primarily focused in?
I'd say, well, Muay Thai. I think Muay Thai is probably the one that I've trained in the most. Nice. That's my friend.
That's actually one of the dangling chads was I wanted to watch you two. You guys talk about martial arts.
Yeah, so I got started in just the various kickboxing arts like Taekwondo, Muay Thai. Originally I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then I went away from that, but then I got back to it. I've taught Krav Maga before. I've trained Krav Maga, Hapkido, Eskrima, Sarada, Eskrima, and now it's like mixed martial arts, just a lot of striking and grappling work. So,
nice,
love it all. How about you?
Taekwondo was my introduction into the world of martial arts when I was a kid, and I'm primarily capoeira at this point in my life.
Nice.
Yeah, and
I never got into capoeira. That's it's such a beautiful art when it's done. Like you're connected to everything. You're connected to the ground. You can never be like disoriented because it's just all circular, all connected. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I had a conversation this morning with somebody, and we were discussing the changeover from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And Aquarius has it has so many names and so many, it's referred to in so many ways, but I've also heard it, it's the water bearer. It's the star card in tarot, number 17, the 8, which, as you know, becomes an 8. But today it was occurring to me, that I've also heard Aquarius referred to as the naked man. And it kind of dawned on me that wouldn't it be something if MMA and mixed martial arts and mano y mano, that kind of individual battle, and the hero of one, if that's the new mentality, the individual, the empowered individual. And if that's the case, then you and I in our our martial arts training is going to be a big asset in what's coming forward in the world. I think a lot of people are going to want to know how to fight for their right to breathe.
Yeah. That's you touch on something cool there, like
We'll have to have a whole new form of martial arts for fighting robots as well.
We'll discover something. We'll cook it up. But no, that I agree. That energy, that martial arts energy, like it's liberating and it's empowering at the same time. I mean, again, those two are so interchangeable. But knowing on a physical level, you begin the practice, learning your forms, you practice the techniques, but then it transcends that and it goes to a spiritual level. Like you traditionally you get to black belt, and then that's where the training begins, and then there's the various degrees upward. But it's like first you're handling the physical, but then in doing that it's a form of alchemy, really. And you can extend this to any art, but the martial arts is just, I think, so powerful because you're building yourself in body, and the training process, the discipline, the time spent, the quality and consistent effort that you put into it, all of that is developing not only the physical body, but the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, like it's all connected. So what you have is, like the end being a Superman, a super like being. And that's the ultimate pursuit. I think that was something Bruce Lee hinted at, and of course others the way before him, and like samurai wisdom, and there's some books I have, secret tactics, mind power, warrior wisdom by this guy Kazumi Tabata, and he talks a lot about that. It's all samurai wisdom, but just he talks about the whole process of martial arts and how it develops you into something greater. So going back to what you're saying, yeah, it is very vital and crucial. I think everyone can get into a discipline, such any discipline, and dedicate themselves. It's way more than just physical. You're building your confidence. You're building yourself, like that hero's journey. You're going on the hero's journey, and competition. If if you decide to compete, that's further training. It's really not. And like you were saying, it's mano y mano, but it's really the battle with the self. It's you're fighting those mental oppressors. And I really like the movie Fearless with Jet Li.
Yes.
Like, there's like a scene. Yeah, there's a scene where he's it's after he goes through all this stuff and he has this wisdom and he's talking to the Japanese fighter and they're having a tea ceremony together. And basically they're just talking about how competition is a way of learning. It's like I'm learning from you. I'm learning to be the best version of myself. And it was like I think that's like the healthiest and truest expression of competition, where you're just learning about yourself and the person in front of you, the opponent, is there to teach you how to become a better version of yourself.
A less startling share from Alan. It's one very, very good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, classic. The secret to eternal happiness, to not argue with fools.
That is great.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Also, we got a question from chatters here. Jenny wants to know, what's your sun sign, if you feel called to share?
Oh,
And
yeah.
she's predicting fire.
Well, so my rising sign is Aries, but my sun sign is Cancer. I'm June 23rd, so that can be on the cusp of Cancer and Gemini. But
do you know what that cusp represents? Because I'm a cusp myself.
Of magic.
Ooh.
That's what it's called, magic. I like this is what I've heard.
Nice. Mine's the cusp of rebirth because it goes from Pisces to Aries. So you're starting a new cycle.
Say that again. It cut off a little bit.
Oh yeah, mine's from Pisces to Aries, being on the 22nd in March. So I got the cusp of rebirth. Any other cuspers out there in the chat, and they know what their cusp is?
You got the fire and water, right? That's Pisces water, and then fire. That's like I think it's a cool combo.
Yeah, my rising being Leo, so I get so much fire. I sweat a lot. High body temperature. Cool. This is definitely some hot action up in this chat so far. A lot of gravy. This is one of the deeper Vibe Rants on the esoteric occult side, and
love it.
I'm ready for questions from people out there in the chat for either of these guys too. I guess you can ask me questions, but you always got me. We don't always have these two. And it was secretly my hope to bring Gabriel up here and have you guys talk some martial arts stuff, because kindred spirits, you know.
Yeah.
See, and then now we have three. We have three in a triangle.
Oh yeah, we made it happen.
The number of the day.
Yeah.
So
worked out.
So that basically means that tomorrow will be a 4, the day after that's a 5, and we basically run through the 9 over and over and over, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
I should incorporate that into my calendar, but the thing is, that's based on the conceptualization of what Gregorian date is, so maybe it's not relevant. But I could do it from the new moon, being maybe the new moon as a 1 in this idea, and add some numerology spice to my Earth calendar, maybe. But I don't know if that would work out, because it's not necessarily divisible by 9. Like, when do I start the 1? I'm just thinking out loud. I guess a moon cycle isn't divisible by 9, is it? Where would we start that? I guess you wouldn't have numerology in an Earth calendar, because numbers are conceptual to humanity in terms of where they begin and where they end. Like, yeah, you've got 3 ducks right there, but are those the first 3 ducks, or are those the 397,000th ducks?
Ordinal counting versus cardinal counting.
Yeah, this is what do you think? Is there more there?
There's like that meme. It was like someone commented, like, somebody at some point decided like it was Monday and the date, and then no one questioned that, and then from there we just decided like what the days are going to be. I think that's pretty funny.
Sopano, you mentioned that there's an individual number. That there's.
Oh yeah.
How does that work?
So then there's a personal number or personal day, which is derived by finding out your personal year. So in order to find your personal year, you just look at the year. So you take your birth month and your birth day. So mine is June 23rd. So I take the 6 plus the 5 from the 23, and then I add that to the year of my most recent birthday. So that would be 2021. If like your birthday is still coming up, then you would use 2020. So what I would have is I have 6 plus 5 plus 5. So that would be a 16, 7. So I'm in a 7 personal year. Now I'll take that 7, and in order to find my personal day, I take the 1 from 10 October plus 6, because it's the 6th, and then add that to 7. So 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 7 is 14, 5. So I'm a 5 personal day within a 3 universal day. So it's like you can take that into consideration as well, and it helps. it helps you just better navigate your day to day. And like numerology, just like with astrology, it's used to understand the self better and understand the cycles around you and coming from within you. And I mean, and so much more too. You can really understand the person, their temperaments, how they think, you know, what their affinities are, just by getting their birth date and their name as it was written on their birth certificate. So it's pretty intense, because that's like a lot of power, right? That you can really understand the person, and you can take it to levels of, you know, I call numeropsychology, where you can actually really have a framework for understanding the person just by looking at their numbers. And then you take the astrology and you have just all the power. It's like if you look at like the Infinity Stones in Marvel, like that's like having the Infinity Stones. Like you can really know a person inside and out. But, you know, having said all that, everything is still a choice. You know, it's not like you look at your numerology and your astrology and then you're sealed to a certain fate. It's like you work with it.
Yeah.
All it does is just show you how to best navigate yourself. And
my take on this is what I'm noticing, because I was just like, which is it? Is it sidereal or is it tropical? Or are both of those totally whack? Like, what is going on? And now I've been exposed to so many very psychic and very in tune and in flow people that use each of these different divinatory arts, that my current take, which is I guess part of the yes and, is that because all these systems are trying to encompass something called truth with words, and that's infinite, they're all equally lacking, but they all, due to their complexity and the amount of time humanity has spent reflecting and investing psychic energy into these systems and the archetypes that are delineated through them, that a highly psychic and a highly inflow person in any of those systems could give you a reading that totally reflected yourself, not totally, but like very, very closely reflected yourself to you. Obviously, there's no totality of truth because that would be zero. But, you know, does it make sense? Like, I've noticed this, that it doesn't matter what they're using. If they're in the flow state, then they deliver. That intuition comes through and they say the stuff that through that system would apply accurately. So that's kind of my take. And then Alan really stepping up with the shares over in the group. You guys, thank you to Alan, but you guys can also contribute, everyone here, if they want. This is what Chad looks like. Chad is monitoring the dangling, hanging pregnant ballots and ballet dancers. And so Alan says the Chads refer to election ballots and what topics we elect to discuss. And why this matters is because I want you guys to know that are listening that you do have say in electing topics for us to discuss. This is not like the other show I do where you're not even there when I record it, although that'll be different on Friday. Remember, Friday, 2 p.m. Central, me and Alan and Gabriel. It's going to get spicy, but I'll bring down this Chad. I just want everyone to know, you know, cast your ballots in terms of topics while you still can. We've been rolling for a while, but there's still time to answer questions and bring up anything goes. It doesn't have to be on topic to where we've been tonight. Although we've gone to some really interesting, cool esoteric places. Really grateful for this one. It's you know what? I have a question for you, Gabe, since we have you. And we can, and then Sopano, you may have more thoughts on this because I'm sure we didn't exhaust your feelings on it. But as you know, as we are on a new moon in Libra today, and I was just thinking about that idea of, well, could you put numerology on the months if you were using a moon cycle calendar, not a Gregorian? So this is maybe getting way too out there, but you aware of like the possibility that maybe a year wasn't what it is now and it could have been more perfect, like 360 days at one point? At which point maybe you could start on the first month, that day being a 1, because by the end you would return the 360, you know, reduces to a 9, so you could divide it by 9s that way. And I don't know, maybe you could do that. And if it's a big agreed upon social thing, what number it is, there's energy in that too, because even the Gregorian numerology does reflect what's going on in the ego space and in the consensus dream world. Mm-hmm. Anyway, these are some rambles that I've got in mind. And Gabriel, you could answer these rambles, or you could just talk about the general energy of new moon in Libra in context to where we've been this year and what's coming. You take it away.
Dude, that is a great ramble. That's a really good one.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've heard that, there are cultures that still have histories that indicate that that there were 360 days once upon a time, and that 5 days have been added to a 360-day system. And I have also separately heard, not from the same sources, but I have separately heard that there are oral traditions that indicate that the moon was not always here. And I find it very interesting that I tend to believe, and this is just me off of the, this is just me, no authority whatsoever, just my own opinion. I think the moon is a late arrival to this system, and that it has augmented the perfect balance of the calendar and added 5 days or 4.6, whatever it is, days to the calendar. So yeah, I do believe that we once were more of a perfect spherical 360-degree balanced system, and that 5 days have been added, and that's not disclosed to us. But I think that, somewhere deep in the Vatican, they could probably consummate those two concepts.
You can't forget that the moon used to be called sin. And
right.
What did the controllers wield over everyone? Debt, which is another meaning of the word sin, and the guilt of the belief that you suck, that is called sin by the desert sky god religions, which actually does tie in to some of that mooncat needing expressed that we talked about earlier, and how I can't express mooncat inside me. That is, they're gonna think that I'm bad if I tell them my hard feelings because of this whole sin concept. And you know what? You guys up for me to go a little far right now?
Yeah. Take it.
Do it.
Okay, so we're talking about the moon being a late arrival, okay, and the idea of sin. And if there was an addition of this extra 5, an imperfect 5, a broken pentagram, then is that the fall that we experienced that got us all out of whack with nature, out of balance, tilted the axis, put our heart on one side and not in the center of our chest? Well, maybe. And what is this fall called? It's Lucifer, right? Lucifer, if we've studied quite a bit of the esoteric elements of scripture and some of the apocryphal scriptures, there's a very strong case to be made that the character of Jesus is actually Lucifer or Lucifer's twin. You could look at it either way. And so, well, let's track back further. What's Lucifer? The morning and evening star. What's the morning and evening star? Venus, the goddess of love. What does Venus track out in the sky? A 5. But that's in the heavens, there's a 5. But now we've added a bad 5 to our system, a 5 too much. And so really, you could I don't know where I'm going fully with this, but really I don't know. Let me just pass the ball to you, Gabe, and see if I can keep going. I lost a little bit of my train of thought.
I can totally pick this up. Venus has the most perfect orbit. It is the most 360. It's not a oval. It's perfectly circular in its orbit.
So we've turned that 0 into a 5, maybe.
Right. And it's like it came in Velikovsky cosmology. There was an impact, Venus was a kind of came and effed up a perfect system, maybe dropped off the moon on the way, and it stole the perfection that of a 360-degree orbit with no ovoid, and we've been thrown off by 5 days. And the strangest sync is that, like you said, Venus traces a spirographic pentagram every almost 8 years. And
Okay, so let's loop this back to love. This is where I was going, but I'm glad that I passed the ball because it was more context that I think was necessary. Venus is representative of, or Aphrodite, goddess of love, also the mother, which is the womb energy, the whole, the totality, definitely a zero thing. And if it makes a circle, perfect circle, that's kind of definitely a zero idea. But when I said earlier that I think the only kind of love is self-love, what I mean by that is that if you truly recognize the divine within all and know that the sense of self in you, if you strip away all identity, all the sound, and just return to feeling and rhythm, that sense of self and I amness is the exact same in every living aspect of the life force energy fractal. It's all the exact same I-ness. The same I sees through all of us. And so if you love yourself, actually love yourself, you love the whole thing. You're in love with life. And if you're in love with life, it's easy to care about life and to care about all the parts of life. But we don't really, when we are determining whether someone loves us or not, or whether we love someone or not, it's really more the function of care. That's the principle that you use as how you arbitrate whether or not you're loved or you are loving. How well do you care for them or care about them? And how well do you nurture their potential rather than lock them into a single vision of who they must be to you? My point is that if we've corrupted Venus by making it Lucifer and then flipping Lucifer into Jesus, there's a lot here, guys. Like, I'm not anti-Christian. I hope this is like acceptable for everyone. I'm trying to get to the esoteric message of these scriptures that we really, not the one that the Vaticans have given us, right? And that would be that, first of all, the Vatican has told us that Lucifer, they've turned Venus into Lucifer and told us that that's the bad guy. And what was so bad about him? Well, they tell you he challenged the Almighty or whatever. But really, if you boiled that down and simplified it, maybe he just loved himself more than anything else. And that was, maybe that's not necessarily an unhealthy thing, like Sopano made some great points earlier about the difference between like self-obsession and self-love. So there's that element of Lucifer too. We shouldn't rule that out. There's two sides of the coin. But they villainize self-love and they've turned self-sacrifice into the Messiah.
Right.
Yeah, and that means we're all killing ourselves and no one's healed instead of all loving ourselves and no one really needing help from each other.
Right. So if the evil is Lucifer, the light of self-fear, then Jesus would be the light of self-love.
That's interesting because the interpretation you get though from the thing is that the reason that he's so great is because he only loves other people. He doesn't really talk about loving himself.
Well, he loves other people as he loves himself.
That is key, but it comes out in this altruism that is maybe not that everything he did was negative altruism, but the end result, the main thing that everyone focused on in the story isn't that he says, all this that I can do, ye can do, and more, which is, you should probably pay attention to that statement. Instead, we just focus on the part where they, murder him for being self-actualized, self-realized. And that is the thing about him that made him a hero, is that he got killed by the collective. He gave himself up willingly to be killed by the collective. And I think that that's tricky programming, because what do we see everyone doing right now that's pro cowpoke is that like, oh, I'm doing this for everyone else and it's killing them. And I'm putting my self-worth or my whether or not I even think life is going to be okay in the end on an external messiah idea through this religion. And it's not just Christianity that does this, but my point is just to like maybe dispel the myth of what real love is, because we need to get to the root of we need to get to the root of that, because that's this inverted love, this externalized. The occult is taking what should have been an internal thing and making it purely external and inverting it through that, or the dark occultist, I should say. This, I think, is like the primary part of that whole dynamic, where it starts is, throwing your individuality away for the collective's cannibalization of you. Okay, I'm going to cool it. Other people talk now. That was enough.
You mentioned something about, what I got from what you were saying was back to going to the root, which is synonymous with going to the heart, going to the heart of the matter being you. And that's what's missing too, is like the antidote, if anything, is finding our center. And so many people are off center. They may be grounded, but being grounded is different from being centered. You can be grounded in something that may not ultimately be serving you. I made a video about this, but when you are centered, when you are your own center, then those belief systems that you have are always going to be for your highest good, and you're going to evolve with it. And to get more concrete with this example, going to the self, understanding who you are, what you stand for, what you rise for, then taking care of mind and taking care of the thoughts and emotions you have, getting in touch with the intuitive side, the feeling side. Yeah.
There's an inversion in the language. Nice. There.
Yeah, that's actually really good. Yeah. So, getting in touch with the thoughts, the emotions, and then taking care of the body, the physical body. Then from there you outward. So there's a concept I think we talked about in the last podcast we did, InnerVerse podcast, self-emanation. I have these 4 videos, and the idea being you start with the center, which is in the heart space, understanding who you are, what you're all about. Then you emanate outwards and embody those thoughts and feelings and project that, because you're in line with what's within. Then you go to so it's like a point. There's a diamond, which represents the heart space. Then there's a circle. That's the psycho-emotional field. Outside of that is a triangle. That represents body and ego. And you have those 3 pillars: rest, nutrition, exercise, or movement. Then there's a final circle. Well, there's actually 2 outer circles, but the final circle is your immediate space, the people that are in your life. And then you go out to like the outer circles, which is like friends and so forth. And then the collective, which is the world. So a lot of people are approaching it from the outward in, and, grounding themselves or rooting themselves to these causes that really, those things should not be handled unless you have your own center, unless you're handling yourself first. You can't be the warrior and fight for something if you can't fight for yourself first, and you can't heal yourself first. So all of that is to say that, we're getting lost, and and then going back to the point of the altruism and that that virtue signaling that you see, it's because there is no center in those that are expressing that. There is just this groundedness in something else, something that's part of an agenda, part of a narrative, that's run by an agency, an organization, a dynasty.
A manic oscillation between extroversion and introversion, and never centroversion.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah. And that introversion, really, it's like it's not self-serving at all. Well, neither are self-serving, but it's
victim introversion,
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's nice. This makes me think of the power of stoicism, in having your boundaries already determined so that you have an unwavering stance,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Stoics have a lot to offer to the modern mentality. A lot of people are waiting to be convinced, or waiting for the research to make some breakthrough for things to change, so that they can, match the expectation of whatever the orders of the day are. But the Stoics, they had things figured out, and they were braced and ready to engage with, healthy debate.
Yeah. And there was also, like, I just think about the discussion on zero and 0 point, center point. There's kind of like with Stoicism, there's that approach from almost a neutral place, a neutral energetic place. So everything, there isn't this attachment to a right or wrong. The center is the determination, the determinant of that, and those beliefs. So what you just said. So yeah, Stoicism is pretty solid.
I just threw up the Venus orbit on the
screen.
That was cool. And there's another share on that here. Thank you, Juliana. Appreciate this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a really nice graphic.
Thank you, Juliana.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, the pentagram.
And that's over 8 years. There's 8. Who's Lord 8?
There we go.
Who's Lord 8? Who were we talking about earlier? That's Hermes or Mercury. He's known as Lord 8. Why would that be? Why would occultists say that Jesus or Lucifer is Hermes or Mercury? Why is that the ruler of Gemini? Why would that? That's what I'm thinking here, is that really these mythological things are, I don't know, maybe Venus really did like come in and co-opt some other ideas like you're talking about from the Velikovsky thing. I need to look into that more. I have no thoughts beyond just those really inconsistently disconnected rambles right there.
It's all connected.
Yeah. But why would that happen over 8 years? That's, I guess, what I was wondering. And the beautiful rose. What's hidden under the rose? Sub rosa. Who are the Rosicrucians? These are the questions that we might need to address in the future, maybe Friday or in some other time when they come up naturally. We're getting close to what I would call the finish line, but I'm once again kind of having too much fun to want to quit. So you guys go at it, and I'll eventually stop us. But Alan wanted to know Sopano's definition of grounding. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's more of a conceptual, energetic understanding. Like, all right, if you're centered, you will be grounded, but you can be grounded and not centered. And the conceptual aspect of it is like, in the example I give in the video is just really simple physical example, being grounded in a mode of exercise. And I use the example of CrossFit, not to bash CrossFit or anything, but a lot of, I'm in the fitness industry, been in it for many years. And what you would see, at least when CrossFit was first becoming popular, was it was just all the rage. And then people that didn't have any foundations to their movement practice, they didn't have good technique, good form, they would jump into CrossFit and they would be doing movements that, things that shouldn't be done at high reps, like Olympic type lifts that require a lot of technical proficiency being done high reps. So that's where a lot of injury occurs. So the reason I use that example is like, that's the person grounded in the belief that, doing CrossFit, or even let's get out of CrossFit, just a high intensity exercise all the time, that, there's belief systems there and they can be really consistent and do that. But is that serving them ultimately? No, it's not going to serve their bodies. They're going to burn out and all that. So you can extend that to any kind of example, or, how you eat, how you think. So when I say grounding, it's just rooting oneself in ideas and belief systems, for the better or worse. There is the other definition of grounding, which, it's like being grounded.
The electrical definition is super helpful.
Oh, yeah. I guess
since we are literally electric beings.
Should have started with that. Yeah.
No, but people have heard that take. What you just gave was a very interesting take, because every philosophy that you build a life and a worldview off of has to have a ground, and that ground has to be chosen. There's never a ground that you can find that's the bottom of the, You can wipe all the paint off the canvas of reality and try to find the canvas underneath all the matter and the energy, and it turns out there's nothing there. There is no ground. We're in the void. We're in the abyss. We're chaining across the abyss from generation to generation and mapping the infinite and continuing on this never endingly. But that's my point, is like, because every worldview, even whether it's Big Bang or let there be light, it's still a circular logic. If there's a beginning and an end, that's a false loop. But if you choose a ground that says eternity is eternal and there is no beginning or end, then time and the present becomes the only thing that really exists, because past and future are just tangents that are connected to the present in a web rather than a linear thing. And we are our future ancestors, especially when you start to find out what our ancestors might have been up to. And it's not a progression of linearly moving forward, progressing through, history, uniformitarianism, as they call it. There are catastrophes. And we find ourselves ass backwards. And all of our spelling being centrally captured and managed by this Babylon tower. But that tower, I think we're the lightning to that tower. And we're going to free all the captive minds and restore, take everyone out of their compartments, away from their cell phones, so that they can self-own. We're going to be off the screen and doing these type of things for real. Just wait. I mean, we'll still use this tech, but it'll be, it's more than this. This isn't all that we've got going. Anyway, that's a good rant for Vibe Rant. I'm into it. Let me see the call-in lines. Anybody else got anything? Yeah, we need to talk about your services, homie. How does someone align themselves in preparation to receive Sopano coaching? And then, like, what type of coaching you have on offer? We definitely need to make space for that. And talk about your book for sure. Like plug all the things and remind them of your YouTube channel. Just make the rounds and take your time. No hurry.
Yeah. So, I mean, going on the questions, align themselves in preparation to receive coaching. I think the book is a great start. That's it's available on Amazon. It's called Art of the Fight, subtitled Mental Performance for Martial Artists.
I'll grab a link while you flow.
Oh yeah,
nice.
So yeah, and actually, Gabriel, that's what when you're talking about martial arts, and I talked about fighting the mental oppressors, I was referencing what Art of the Fight is about, actually, and it's a system of self-improvement, self-enhancement, and so art, that's an acronym for the system. ART, aiming, resonating, tuning. So it's 3 phases, and aiming is the phase, and they each have their sub phases. So with aiming, you start with attention. So paying attention to the problem, to the issue. Then you move into awareness, which is just that second layer, or you can say the yin yang, like attention, awareness. That's, getting further aligned with what the problem is. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Then that takes you to action once you have those first 2 in line. So attention, awareness. Now we have action, and that is, taking proper action. How do we move towards our goal? So our point A to point B, which is the end point, which is triumph, and I'll touch on that in a second. So action takes you to resonating phase, and that's the character building phase. So we have realization, revelation, and rise as the 3 sub phases there. So realization is realizing your personal power. What is the ideal self that you need to become in order to live the life of your dreams, and in the case of the fighter or combat athlete, to be victorious, to be triumphant. So there's guiding questions there that you get in touch with, and then you go to revelation. How do you reveal that to the world? This is acting it out, walking the walk, talking the talk. And then once you have those 2 elements, then you have the third piece, rise. So now you rise up as that character, that new being, and you rise up to face the challenge. Then we get to the the superficial level, and in that, by that I mean the techniques, the actual physical stuff that we do. So this is all prep work to the tuning phase, the T, which is now we start with technique, and that's where, you know, there's certain techniques, mental skills, like whether it be just the self-talk and working on that dialogue, or, you know, meditation, or mindfulness, visualization, deciding what the person needs and what's going to help best get us to that point B. Then training, that's the protocol, you know, the reps, the frequency, and the exact plan, the practice plan that we form. So we're getting more and more concrete. And then finally, you have triumph, and that's the end result, or end result. You know, it's both an outcome, you know, win or lose, that's a triumph, you win.
Mm-hmm.
But the more important part is the state of being triumphant, and that's what this system helps you get to. It's by understanding yourself and developing this system of dealing with the mental oppressors, the invisible forces that hold us back or corrupt us temporarily. And now you have, you know, that is mastering the art of the fight. It's, you know, you have this tool which you can constantly use whenever you're dealing with these intangibles that are obstacles to you. So that's in a nutshell what the system is. And so it's a really quick read, easy read. It's on both Kindle and paperback form. But that would be the start, the prep. Other prep, I mean, I would recommend the Kabbalion and looking at reading the 7 Hermetic principles. That's like so fundamental. As far as the services that I have to offer, I do numerology readings. That's something, like, again, I mentioned to Chance, like in the last episode, it's like for seekers only. That would be anyone listening to this. You guys are all seekers, so that's just, you go to
Party seekers, because this was fun.
Yeah, definitely. And coachsopano.com/numerology, and that's the page on there. It's a little description of Pythagorean numerology, and then you can go to a link there if you want to sign up. And, you know, my email to Sopano@coachsopano.com if you want to get in touch with me and find out about the other service, which is my mental performance coaching that I do. That's it's not necessarily the numerology. You know, I've actually been thinking like of having something that blends the two, because in the numerology, that's just a full reading, right? And you get an idea of where, you know, who you are, what you're all about, the life lessons you're here to learn, all the things that the numerology provides us. And in there's coaching as well. But then, you know, constantly I've been thinking of this whole thing, which I touched on, numeropsychology. Like, how do we blend that old, that ancient art form to something new and have it become more applicable? So the mental performance work is separate, although one thing that I do always with any client is I get their birth date. So just without them knowing, I get an understanding of where they're at with, you know, their life lessons and things. So I do definitely use that to color the session and really dive into the person. So if you wanted to find out about that, you can email me if it's mental performance related. But yeah, that's what I got.
Nice. You remind me of a saying that I tell my daughter every day before she goes to school. If you don't triumph the first time, try a little more umph.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, you have unlimited chances, right? It's
yes, chances unlimited. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I just smiled because it's what is it? I once said, like, you know, you have, in the book I mentioned something like there's no absolute loss or absolute defeat. It's winning. It's winning and learning. And I didn't coin that term. It was someone else, Paul Check. Winning and learning, right? You know, you don't experience absolute loss or defeats. You know, the only absolute is if, you know, once you're no longer in embodied form. But as long as you're here, you have full access to the investment. You can get 100% return on the investment that is you.
Nice.
So Gabriel, will you tell them where your YouTube channel's at, and will you start coaching us too, like Sopano does? Because like you got a strong will to love, and I really appreciate it. And
Yeah, for
Sopano,
sure.
I hope someone out there or someone's out there dive in for some of the numerology or the mental training, because I'm sure that if you know, follow the feeling like we were talking about, if you're sitting here feeling like, man, I could definitely work with this idea. He feels right. It feels right. Going for it, man. Invest in it.
Yeah. I'd say to anyone who's listening and wants that, the coaching, the numerology is the place to go, you know, because you guys are all already of the mind and are into these topics and into these greater truths, we can say. So that's the place to start. If you're feeling, I haven't had any, like, every reading that I've done, you know, of the one that I've done, it's always been very accurate for the person hearing it. I mean, when I got it done myself, it was super accurate. And there's people that are both like on the pragmatic end, where they aren't really like that much, you know, they don't put much stock in things like astrology or numerology, yet they still are like, wow, this is very accurate. And there's life events that can completely confirm what the numbers say. And that's why I really think it's so powerful. It's just like, you got the cheat codes.
Here's a life event that confirms what the numbers say. The Empress, Venus, number 3. We're talking about 3.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Whoa.
Nice. Nice draw.
Hyper synchronicities.
Yeah, so I want to get to Gabriel talking about his YouTube channel and letting people know about it.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
I also do divinatory stuff. I'll just pull a machine card for right now, see how it connects. Yeah, it connects so hard. Guess what? Chance is not unlimited because I just drew limitation. Self-discipline, which is what you guys are teaching people with martial arts.
Ritual, yeah, wow. Build up energy.
Nice.
That's hilarious. That was nice one, Cosmos. That was a really funny one. Right after Chance Unlimited, Chance draws limitations. Can't make this stuff up. That's why I wanted to show everyone, like, I'm just pulling a random card. I'm not just searching for one and then giving you it. Anyway, it's probably time to wrap up. So go ahead and hit us on the YouTube channel for Gabriel, what you do over there. I recommend everyone dive into your work big time. And thanks for joining us on the second hour. It's been awesome to do this 3-way sausage fest.
Yeah, so my channel is Slick Dissident on YouTube, and I guess one thing I got going is I do everything and anything, whatever comes to mind. I don't really have a specialty or a focal point. I draw from a lot of many lines of thoughts and kind of pull from the greats of history and wisdom and knowledge, and try to bring them to bear in a modern day context as best I can. And it always seems pretty interesting, and I get a lot of good feedback. And I'm not a big channel as of right now, so if people want to give comments or feedback, I even got a few pen pals now on email, so I'm very accessible and always open to ideas and suggestions. So it can be pretty interactive if people want to reach out.
Yes. Connect with Gabriel. He is a really kind dude. And I'm going to now show one last thing out of our channel from Telegram. This is Sundog and Mooncat by our friend Limond, who's a graphic artist in the 3D modeling space. So if you guys know about Sundog and Mooncat clearly, then you know that it's awesome that someone's making art of this. And if you don't know about Sundog and Mooncat, go find Vibe Rant episode 1. There is a playlist for Vibe Rant on my YouTube channel, so you can find the first episode there easily. Sometimes it's tough to search for my stuff on the YouTube algorithm, even if you type in the exact what it's called. And I will get these listed on my website. I've been slacking. Sorry about that. Right now, you have to go to Rockfin or YouTube to catch Vibe Rant. I really should get them on my website. And I will. So I showed that. Oh, yeah, when I brought up the I Ching a second ago, it was also to let people know, yeah, you can hit me up for that type of divination, like my morning videos that I've been doing. If you haven't been tuning into the morning videos, it's a good way to sync up with what our community and I guess even maybe the Sky Clock is doing, because it seems like it fits Sky Clock stuff, even though I'm just pulling random cards. I love how that works. Divination is so fun. So if you guys want that, hit me up for that. And gentlemen, you have any closing thoughts now that we've got all the chads that have been voted on?
I'm looking forward to reading Sopano's work, man. That sounds like a great book. It's right up my alley. Chance, thanks for linking me.
Oh yeah, I love making
thanks for coming
these
on,
connections.
Gabriel. Yeah, no, I love this, man. Thanks for having me on.
Maybe that's what Vibe Rant is for, is for me to connect people who would be like really into each other's stuff. Because I tried to do that with Matt and Mitch the other night. Vibe Rant matchmaker. Cool.
Nice.
I've got an outro song with graphics, so I'll play that. It's Electric Eyes by Defunk. We got to get more funk in our life. Anyway, I like it. We were talking about the eye. Talked about bioelectricity a little bit. So maybe that's a fitting song. I'll play that. I'll stick around in the chat comments for a little while. And thank you to the tippers, Kabir and Gordy over on Rockfin. They tipped me. That was really kind. It's been fun hanging out. Always like the highlight of the week to do a Vibe Rant. This one was different and unique like they always are. And everyone who contributed, big thanks. Let's collab more. And Sopano, hit me up. You ever want to call into a Vibe Rant? Just like you got more gravy you want to drop on us? This is a community experiment. So you're always welcome. And we'll keep doing them. See you guys next Wednesday. But also, last thing, don't forget about Friday. Gabriel, myself, and Alan going to be pretty hot and spicy. Triplicity of Fire, 2 p.m. Central. Yeah, 2 p.m. Central. In YouTube, Rockfin, you know the drill. So Friday, that's the day, Venus Day. All right, you guys, have fun. I'll catch you all on the flip and enjoy this song and graphics that I made, because I think they're kind of cool, and you can let me know if they suck. All right, bye, everybody.
Been searching in the dark for a love like yours. I must have bleeding heart, no one keeping score. Drowning in desire, no one creeping in. Struck my chest and running from across the room. Baby, I've been waiting for your love. I know that I am. Your electric eyes take me down. Baby,